Welcome to Movie Speeching. Spoilers ahead, watch out and take good care. The Animal Kingdom is the name of the movie. Please like and subscribe to get every update. In the middle of a traffic jam, Emile and his father Francois argue because Emile doesn't want to come and they are late because of him. Finally, Emile got fed up with being scolded by his father and abandoned the car, so Francois chased after him. Just then, they noticed an ambulance shaking as something screamed inside before the windows shattered. Francois immediately pulled Emile into hiding when the ambulance door opened and a half-bird, half-human creature stepped out and landed on the roof of a car. Security guards rushed to arrest the mutant, who struggled and screamed at them, scaring everyone on the street. The mutant tried to push the officers away from him and fled. Sometime later, Emile and Francois go to the hospital to see the doctor who is treating Emile's mother Lana, who is also turning into an animal. It turns out that over the past few years, many people across the country have suddenly started transforming into more animalistic forms, and most of the time, they become very violent. The authorities do their best to capture them all and keep them in specialized facilities, where mutants are kept calm with sedatives while researched in the hope of finding a cure. Most people are afraid of mutants and want to lock them away. Emile doesn't want to see his mother because he's been wary of her since she accidentally scratched his face, but Francois insists she's still part of the family. The doctor explains that a new, more advanced reception center has opened in the south and Lana should be transferred there, which Francois quickly accepts. He wanted to settle there with Emile so they could start a new life, away from the judgment of those who knew Lana. When they entered Lana's room, Emile noticed all the scratches on the wall and didn't get too close. Francois sat with her and talked to her and thought it helped, but Emile didn't think she could understand everything they said. A few weeks later, Emile, Francois and their dog moved to a new house at the edge of the forest. Soon Emile started going to school, and when the teacher introduced him to the class, Nina asked too many questions. Emile decides to lie and say that his mother is dead before explaining that his scar was from a lightning strike. That evening, a huge storm hit the city. The electricity went out and Emile was awakened by the sound of wind and thunder. He went to check the window and was surprised to see a creature looking into the house, but as soon as Francis brought the power back on, the creature was gone. The next day, they received an emergency call and rushed to the local lake, where police and firefighters had cordoned off the area. It turns out the storm caused an ambulance to go off the road and into the lake, and when they see a police officer retrieving the body of a creature, Francis fears the worst. It was the ambulance that transported all the mutants to the new center, and now half of them are dead while the others have escaped. The police hold a desperate Francois back as he screams for his wife, but Officer Julia assures him that they haven't found Lana's body, so she must be somewhere in the woods. When they returned home, Francis began hanging some of their clothes on trees around the house, hoping the scent would lead Lana to them. The next day, during class, the gym teacher let the whole class play tug of war. Emile's entire team immediately fell to the ground, except him. Surprisingly, he was able to shoot alone long enough for his teammates to join him and win the match. Afterwards, everyone was impressed by Emile's strength and invited him to a party. However, Emile was too busy examining his fingers and rushed home, where he used tweezers to pull something out of his fingernails while screaming in pain. He is shocked to discover small claws, meaning he is also slowly starting to transform. Then he looked at his back in the mirror and noticed the shape of his spine was also changing. Enraged, he threw his belongings into the bathroom before climbing into the bathtub to wash away his shame. His dog climbed into the bathtub with him to comfort him. Meanwhile, Francois goes to deliver letters and meets Julia, who informs him that they are no longer searching because the government has promised to send soldiers. Suddenly, they heard screaming because the customers saw a mutant. Julia orders her teammates to evaluate them all, but Francois searches for the mutant to see if it is Lana. The creature turns out to be a mutant squid that only wants to eat fish, and when it realizes it has been found, it throws a can of shrimp at them before running away. She continued to throw random food at Julia as she chased her, but that wasn't enough to stop a trained officer, so Julia jumped in to catch her. Francis looked through the grocery store window and found another mutant looking extremely scared, but he decided not to call the police. The following Friday, Emile went to a party and had a good time. Classmates admire the swords brought by a young man who will be present at the upcoming Midsummer Festival. Suddenly, the alcohol begins to make Emile sick and he falls out of his seat. Nina gives him some medicine and Emile can't stop his body from licking her hand to pick it up, which panics the others. Embarrassed, Emile flees through the forest when he hears the noises of other mutants. The next morning, Emile woke up near the lake and heard the sound of a motorboat passing by. He saw blood in his mouth and immediately spat before leaving, seeing anti-mutant graffiti on his way home. At home, he rushes into the bathroom and vomits up a feather, making him realize that he ate a bird last night. Afterwards, Francois and Emile bypass the roadblocks left by the police and go into the woods to find Lana. Emile asked his father how he felt when Lana began to change, and Francois explained that he was never afraid. She is still his wife, just a little different. As night fell, they continued searching for the car, shouting out the window and playing Lana's favorite song loudly. They ended up spending the night in the car, and in the morning, Emile noticed that his fingernails had changed again. Suddenly, his dog runs away and Emile follows him, only to discover a baby chameleon in a tree. At that moment, the Birdman pinned Emile to the ground in the first place and started hitting him with his wings while his claws injured his shoulder, causing it to bleed. However, the man was dumbfounded when he looked into Emile's eyes and realized he was also a mutant. Emile's cry caused Francois to run towards his son, grab his hand, and ask the Birdman to stay away. Once back in the car, Francois announces that they are going to the hospital, but Emile refuses because they will discover the truth. Their argument almost causes them to crash into a horse, but Francois stops the car just in time and they realize they have reached the carousel. The police are there and Julia explains that a mutant has attacked the horses, so Francois takes the opportunity to ask for some help. Finally, an army nurse gave Emile the stitches he needed and believed the story of the dog biting his shoulder. Later, at home, Emile removed some stitches and began licking the oozing wound. Sometime later, during lab class, Emile notices that Nina has a necklace with feathers like the one he threw up and panics, but Nina immediately calls him out. After that, he couldn't concentrate because he was distracted by the cries of the ferrets in the cage. Finally, he broke down and shouted at them, telling them to be quiet. After school, Emile has difficulty riding a bike due to changes in his body, and Nina tries her best to be supportive, even inviting Emila to hang out at her house. While preparing a snack, Emile opens the refrigerator and finds a dead bird, so Nina explains that she found it at her door after the party and took her feather as a necklace. Emile realizes that he did not eat it but left it for him as a gift. Nina kept it because she was going to give it as food to the mutants. Emile then went into the lake and caught a fish himself, which a neighbor saw. He then searches for the Birdman, who tries to fly and keeps falling to the ground. Emile left the fish for him and learned his name was Fix because he no longer remembered his real name. Seeing Fix's injuries from the failed flight, Emile points out that there is a safer place to train and takes Fix to the lake. After Emile removed all the branches from the water to avoid further injury, Fix agreed to practice there. In the evening, Emile tried to ride his bicycle home, but it kept falling, so he decided to leave it in the woods and tell his father that it had been stolen. Meanwhile, at the bar where Francois works, he discovers that the owner has made anti-mutant t-shirts, which makes him very uncomfortable. Afterwards, he went to take out the trash and heard a noise in the garden when he was suddenly grabbed by a mutant, pushing Francois to the ground. Noticing that the creature was chained, Francois tried to calm it peacefully, but only found a second mutant fleeing. At that moment, a colleague used a paddle to push the creature away, revealing that this mutant was someone close to her and that she was hiding him at work. She and Francois tried to guide the creature to its hiding place, but the mutant panics and rushes through the bar, scaring everyone. Believing that the other creature might be Lana, Francois ran towards the forest and found his wife in full bear form, who made noise with him before leaving. Then, during lunch at school, Emile felt something in his mouth and suddenly pulled out a tooth. The others were disgusted, so he pretended it was a baby tooth. In the afternoon, he visits Fix, who keeps falling into the water while trying to learn to fly. As Fix rested, Emile examined the wound and removed the bandage from his face, discovering that the doctors had performed a gruesome surgery to remove the growing beak. In the evening, Julia accompanies Francois into the woods to help him search for Lana, and they have to hide every time they see a police car passing by. In the end, they don't find any creatures, but Francois is shocked to find Emile's bicycle. When he got home, Francois discovered that the bathroom sink was clogged, so he removed the pipe to clear the water. Inside, he found a lot of hair and a few claws, which finally made him understand that Emile was also changing. When Emile also returned, Francois showed him the claws and the bike, but Emile denied everything. Francois locked the house and wouldn't let him in until he confessed, so Emile tried to escape. Francois desperately ran after him and tackled him to the ground, holding Emile tightly as he collapsed. The next morning, Emile ate directly from his plate instead of using a fork, but Francois remained supportive. He also shares some of Lana's medicine so that Emile can control his impulses while he is in class. Francois then examines Emile's mouth and confirms that the fangs are now in the back so others cannot see them. He reminded his son to cut his nails every day and put cotton in his ears before covering them with his hair so that his improved hearing would not be overwhelmed by noise. Finally, Francois shows Emile how to use hair removal cream on his body. Later that day, Emile talked to Nina on the phone while walking in front of the house. He asks Nina to scream, and when she does, he is happy to discover that he can hear her from there. The next day, Emile visits Fix and discovers that he can no longer speak but can only make bird sounds. After Emile hugs him, Fix climbs a tree and then jumps, revealing that he can finally fly and that he really enjoys doing it. Later, Emile goes to the carnival where his father works. Francois is furious when he meets him because Emile is supposed to be hiding, and an argument ensues that quickly turns into physical aggression. Emile growled as he bit his father's shoulder, not letting go until Francois threatened him with scissors. Upset and confused, Emile leaves and runs into Nina, who invites him for a walk in the cornfield. The teens end up kissing and things quickly heat up, so they lie down to get dirty. When Emile takes off his shirt, Nina discovers the hair and spine have changed, but she says she knew that and continued anyway. They then return to the festival and Emile goes to the restroom, where he finds himself cornered by a classmate who saw him with Nina on the field. The guy made noises with a small machine that should only be heard by animals, which immediately made Emile's ears hurt. Terrified, Emile attacked the boy, leaving scratches on his face. Emile immediately fled the field while the boy alerted all the residents, forcing them to take their weapons and call the police. Soon, a dog found him, but Emile drove him away by barking. Seeing the dog run away, two men opened fire in its direction and the alarm sounded. Emile ran as fast as he could while a group of people chased him, and when one guy was about to shoot him, Fix came and pushed him away, killing him with his claws. Fix then flew into the woods so Emile could follow him. A police car also pursued them and Emile crossed the lake to stop them, but the frustrated men opened fire from across the water and unfortunately hit Fix. Emile immediately ran to his friend and cried while Fix died in his arms. A few minutes later, Francois and the hunters found Fix's body, but Emile was nowhere to be seen. Meanwhile, in town, a large mutant sneaks in as an army truck enters the forest. The next day, Emile hid in the forest and ate all the fruit he could find. In the evening, he climbs a tree and joins the chorus of nocturnal creatures with his own howl. The next night, a storm hits the area and Emile hides in a cave. He was scared when a bear approached him and realized it was his mother. They confront each other to admit their love for each other. Then Lana leaves, wanting her son to follow her. Emile does so and discovers many mutants living in harmony with each other, including the chameleon girl. At that moment, he saw flares being shot into the sky, meaning the army had found them. Emile and the other mutants try to flee, but the soldiers use pain sounds so the creatures can do nothing but fall to the ground in pain and are captured. The only one who escaped was the chameleon girl, who used disguise to hide. Later at the police station, Francois helps Emile claim that he was drunk and that he ended up in the woods by mistake. However, when Emile had to sign the hospital discharge papers, his hand couldn't hold the pen and broke the paper. When the police gave him a new one, Emile couldn't help but growl at him, so Francois immediately pushed the police to knock him down before he could raise the alarm. The policeman was hit on the head and fainted while Francois himself sealed the document, which he then quickly gave to the receptionist and successfully left with Emile. Then they got in the car and left town. Soon, the police begin chasing them, but Francois promises Emile that he will not go to any premises and drives as fast as he can, past the fence to the forest. Francois then told his son to run, and Emile did so, screaming with happiness. Thank you for watching. See you on the next video.